Hey there, Laker fans. Welcome to another episode of Lakers Detailed. I'm your host, Vinay, with my co host, Raj. Apologies for the delay. We were running a little behind schedule, and so we had to delay the stream for about 30 minutes. So I know it's going to be a little difficult for our non West Coasters, but we appreciate the folks that are able to tune in. And of course, we always appreciate. Oh, and it might actually be good for the folks that are in London because it's like super early in the morning. So maybe it's a little bit consistent in the day. But as always, we appreciate all the folks that are able to tune in on this Monday night. Raj, we have our final four set. It is the Knicks versus the Pacers. OKC wins in Game 7 against the Denver Nuggets, and Minnesota Timberwolves are waiting for them anxiously. And so we have our final four set. I know we're going to have to talk about Alex Caruso. Laker fans have been talking about Alex Caruso constantly. So we're going to have to definitely devote some time to him because he seems
I'm guilty.
arguably be maybe the second best player on that OKC team. I would argue to some degree for many of those games. But the finals are set. How do you feel before we get into all that? How are you doing, my friend? We haven't talked in a week.
Yeah. No, I'm good. It's been cool watching the basketball that's been going on. It feels like 5 days since the Game 7. It feels like there's just been this big kind of vast emptiness. But the Sparks have kicked off again, which is cool. Kelsey Plum had her kind of debut, but
she had like 37 or something like that. She's a crazy number.
Yeah, she had like 37 in her opener, and then struggled a little bit against a better team in the Minnesota Lynx in the home game. But I'm good, man. The summer started way earlier than I would have liked it to, but have kind of settled in. How's it going on your end?
It's been going good. It's really nice. You had a really nice tweet that I was trying to find the right picture to meme when I quote tweeted it, but I couldn't find anything, so I just retweeted. But the one about all the teams you wanted to not advance,
right. They're all gone.
Now it's like you just enjoy basketball and watch it.
Right.
Nothing on the hook. You just piece. I've been in that mode since obviously once Boston lost. Obviously the circumstances for their loss. I hope Tatum gets better sooner than later. But them getting knocked out, I was just like, I'm okay now. I really don't care what happens. I don't care who wins. I'm just gonna watch it and enjoy it. So what do you do with that peace and harmony? Do you just sit back and you're just watching plays happen?
Yeah, you just enjoy it. I said this before because I think we both grow up kind of Kobe fans and as Laker fans, and I didn't really appreciate LeBron until later. And I was like, man, I wish I was watching those Cavs game or those Cavs Warriors with a little less of LeBron can't win a ring. You know what I mean? Kind of. I wish I was kind of less into it, but yeah, you just get to enjoy it. It's funny when I tweeted that there are people like, you want Indiana to win? I was like, why would I care if Indiana wins? What is
who cares? That's what people have been people have been so I remember I was talking to the coaches den guys and I was just like, do you guys really hate the Nuggets or do you guys hate Mike Malone? Because he was kind of the antagonist for the Lakers. They're like, yeah, you know what, now that we think about it, we don't really care if the Nuggets, some of them still care that the Nuggets win or lose, but it's been interesting to listen to Laker fans be not really care about the Nuggets losing because Jokic doesn't go out of his way to take digs at LeBron or the Lakers or anything. Obviously the Russ thing is always going to be there. That's always a thing. But I'm even with that OKC series, I was at a point where I was just I don't care. I don't really care who wins it out of this. But OKC was a better team. So I'm glad that they won.
For me with Denver, it's just they kicked our ass so much, and it's just you don't want to see someone that beat you up to hell continue to win. You know what I mean? Let's have their kind of their run, and they obviously went farther than you would even imagine what their season went a few weeks ago. But no, now it's very peaceful. All these teams are all new. None of them have. I think who's left that hasn't won a champion? The Knicks are the only one that have won championship.
The Knicks won in the 70s. That was the last. Yeah. So it's been 30 years since the Knicks won, but the other three teams are all first timers.
All first timers, all young stars, right? And Ant and Shea going. Hey, what do the kids call it? An aura off, or what do they call? What are they calling it, bro?
Dude, what's happening to our game, bro?
The terminology that I'm seeing now is an aura off that's going on in the conference finals.
And we shouldn't discount Tyrese Halliburton because he's been
Yes.
fantastic. And I think Jalen Brunson's also been fantastic. Two lead guards who lead their teams in different ways, which is very cool. I think from like a basketball perspective, they run their teams in different ways. They impact their teams in different ways. They've got that underlying story of the whole WWE appearance that both of them did together. And then after Cooper Flag going to Dallas, I'm like, bro, all of this might be scripted, bro. This Adam Silver might be. He's gonna take off the mask and be Vince McMahon underneath it, just scripting all these things. It's like, bro, what is happening with the league?
I go back and forth on this, Vinay. So now the Cavs are gone. 64-win team is gone. The Celtics are gone, who I think were still the favorite to win the title, if I have that correct. Obviously, Tatum's injury changes a lot of that. Oklahoma City is really the only number one seed, quote unquote, that's in. Do you watch these playoffs going, man, we could be playing respect to these teams, by the way, but we could be playing a Knicks team who's good, but obviously there's flaws within it. Tom Thibodeau's with his coaching, or Indiana team that's really feels like they're punching higher than their weight, even though they probably weren't respected as much. And in the West, obviously you have Minnesota and Oklahoma City. But do these teams make you feel like, damn, we missed a great opportunity, or was it kind of like these teams are we are way farther than we should? Where are you in that kind of scale? I go back and forth. I'm like, you go to the finals with Luka and LeBron versus Tyrese Halliburton as the best player on the other side, or Jalen Brunson as the other side. Now the NBA is kind of moving towards. There's this great article. I don't know if you got to read it, but how the NBA is moving from like your strongest link to weak link. I don't know if you got to see that.
No,
it was really interesting how like it's the team with the least, like who doesn't have the worst player wins instead of the team with the best player wins. But where are you in terms of how close the Lakers were with how it's kind of played out? Where the East is now, you have a third and fourth seed, or what are the Pacers? The sixth seed, I think they were, or I forgot what their seeding was.
Yeah, they might have been four. I think 4 or 5 was Knicks and somebody else, but the Pacers might have been the lower seed,
right,
beating up on the Bucks, but or it might have been 4 or 5 Bucks Pacers. But to speak to the idea of you're only as strong as your weakest link. That is, I mean, I think that's a pretty fair way to say it. Like your question was, how do I feel about us compared to these teams? I don't think our roster, after from 4 to 8, let's just say that most teams aren't going more than 6, 7 deep, 8 deep. Maybe OKC is the only one that really goes pretty deep because they have like Keyshawn Wallace and all those other guys. In regards to that, like, I honestly do think that we probably weren't quite there, like 4 to 8 to be able to get that. I think we got great efforts in individual moments, right? You get a great third quarter, I think in game 4 from Rui and Austin, but in the fourth quarter, our stars aren't able to close out that game. You get a spectacular game 3 from LeBron, if I'm not mistaken. Like, we don't close out that game. So it's just too many times where, your role players did step up in different degrees. And I think like when you lose a series, it's very common for people to be like, well, Austin sucked the whole series, which for the most part, he played below, I think, both of our expectations. And like, it's easy to do that, but at the same time, you have to also think like there were pockets and moments in games where they won you a quarter or they won you a half. And I thought the Lakers, against a really great Minnesota team defensively, we just didn't have the horses. Like, I think we couldn't out physical them. We couldn't out rebound them. We couldn't out defend them. And we definitely couldn't outscore them, in the fourth quarter. So like, when I look at it compared to these other teams, like I go, I think we would have had a great chance against many of these teams, but at the same time, you've got to have more than just your 2 stars. I think the modern NBA has now become more about, like you said, we grew up watching Kobe, being Lakers fans. It was very superstar centric, like the whole time. And like now the modern NBA is more about like how good are your role players? Can you actually play them? Like they're like OKC's playing Keyshawn Wallace, who is not like a hardened veteran, but is excellent at what he does and being deployed in that manner. Alex Caruso, a guy that we have gotten to know very intimately, being super impactful, being a role player in the regular season, but being like a core. He's got to play 35 to 40 minutes in the playoffs to getting played, matching up against Jokic at the top of that base defense that they run. So anyways, Long answer, but my short answer is yeah, I would agree with that. I think more than ever, you can't be a top heavy team, and more than ever, you
Mm,
have to have like 6, 7 guys. Maybe you can extend that out to like 8, 9, depending on like the kind of team you play that you're ready to go to war with, and like your coach can really trust that can do a lot of different things. And I think all these teams, all these teams have guys that are in that realm that are 5 to 8 on the roster, but they compete and they
yeah.
go to war.
Yeah, they're deep, right? Most of these teams are, and like the part I keep going back, Vinay, is like, did we not have a 5 through 8, or were they just not played? Did those guys just
Yeah,
not earn
that's always going to
the
be
minutes,
something.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's something that I can even think about before we get into our like what we're gonna talk about. I just the Caruso thing was fascinating to watch it continue to, and it's gonna hurt even more, Vinay, because they're gonna put Caruso on Julius Randle next series, and it's
yeah.
just gonna be like. And hearing Draymond going on his podcast going, I lost my matchup to Julius Randle.
Do you think you got peer pressured into saying that? Because it feels like everybody, like the Warrior fans and everybody's just like, no, dude, like you couldn't stop Randall. Like Randall was playing you on, like you were playing him 1-on-1, and you just couldn't
Yeah,
stop him.
I don't know. I think when you have a mic in front of you, you just there's stuff you gotta say. Like
Yeah.
Draymond, I get it. Paul George though, when he has some like my God, bro. Like I don't know if you heard his latest one, but I forgot whose podcast he was on. He's on so many now that like
Yeah,
he was
I know.
he's just doing appearances, and he goes on and goes, man, if LeBron doesn't exist, like I probably have, a title. And like that's cool to say when you retired, you know what I mean? But
Yeah,
that's not really cool when you're on year 2 of a super, like you're on a
yeah.
max deal, year number 2. And Philly's hearing that going, this is our guy. So no, but
I wonder if it's because he doesn't want to be forgotten in like the Pacers. I don't. I'm just contextualizing without actually
mm,
watching it, but I wonder if it's because he sees like the success the Pacers have had, and so he
mm,
probably doesn't want to be like forgotten. Like as a
he
guy
sees
who,
he sees
yeah,
Tyrese Halliburton kind of
yeah.
etching his name over him.
Sidebar, Raj.
Yeah.
Tyrese is a player who I would say plays the point guard position the way that we used to think of point guards back in the day, like very pace controlled, ball control, trying to really keep his like thumb on the temperature gauge or the hand on the temperature gauge of the game. He doesn't get like he'll have games where he has really great offensive games when the three ball is falling, but it's so interesting to watch because people, and it's been sitting in my brain. Becky Hammond went on ESPN and said that Jalen Brunson's not a superstar, and she's like, he's not a superstar, but he's like not that guy.
He
That
can't
number
be a
one,
number one on
he
a
can't be
title
a number
team.
one guy, right? And you could say that I would bet that she'd probably say the same thing about like a guy like Tyrese Halliburton because of the way he plays and the role that he plays on his team.
Mm,
But I wonder if like one of the things that we have to think about and this is going to relate to this Austin Luka conversation they have, that when you stop that we have to stop thinking about guys in terms of like, is this guy a superstar? Is he 30, 10, and 5
mm,
and doing this? Like there are clear cut guys that are like that. Luka is like that. Jokic is like that. Giannis is like that. Shea with his scoring is certainly like that too as well. So some guys are certainly like that. But there are these guys who they're not superstars, but they're somewhere between like a star, like an all-star and a superstar, but they have their impact can be almost superstar esque
mm,
because they, even if their stats don't necessarily back it up. And when I think about guys like Tyrese, when I think about guys like Jalen, I think about guys like that because I was just like, sometimes Jalen won't give you 34, maybe he'll give you
mm.
28, but he'll do stuff and for the Knicks that really helps him out. And same thing with Tyrese. So I'm very fascinated to see how that matchup goes because I think they're bucking the trend of, well, you need to have superstars to win a title. So
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting.
I'm a double your sidebar here because I think,
Yeah.
this is going to continue down the train of former Lakers. But I was texting someone, we were talking about Tyrese Halliburton. I said, we haven't planned this, so I'm throwing this on you right now.
Yeah.
But Tyrese reminds me a lot, Vinay, of what I think Lonzo was supposed to be, like number 2. Obviously, not
I see.
exact role.
I see where you're going with it, but go ahead.
Right,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, and this is obviously what Lonzo's highest expected outcome would be, right? In terms of on-ball guard, both have really, for lack of a better term, an ugly jump shot, right? Tyrese hurt. I think that's why Tyrese gets ranked where he is. Honestly, his jump shot is just there's no aesthetic, appeal to it at all. But Yeah, I watched Tyrese, and there's a level of we spoke about this before, but there's a level of involvement Tyrese does with his whole team that Lonzo also does. You know what I mean? Lonzo has a very much of a connective tissue where he makes sure everyone's involved. He makes sure like where the shots come from. There's a freedom to it. There's a democratic way he plays where I'm just gonna
Mm,
push the ball, right? I'm just gonna push the ball and like whoever's open. Whoever the
yes.
lob is, Wherever the kick. There's no. I'm not attacking players who do this. It's just you could tell Tyrese has that whole team on a string of
Yeah.
like Obi Toppin knows if I run, Tyrese is getting it to me. Like,
Yeah.
or who's the guy everyone wants? Aaron Neesmith's like if I sprint to this corner, Tyrese is finding me, right?
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
like he doesn't care about his numbers in that type of way. And Lonzo to me reminds me a lot is like that's what I thought of Lonzo when I watched him. But yeah, then watching all our young Lakers kind of cook in these playoffs has brought back more young Lakers that can even add. Josh Hart's another guy that's been going, but
Yeah. I think each
yeah,
team
it's
has
just
one. Each team has like a former Laker guy on the team, so it's we'll always point that out. Um, maybe one of the things that we don't necessarily give credit to because it's not
mm,
measurable. It's measurable in like an indirect way, but with offensive rating and whatnot, when a player is on and off the floor, which is what um, I would say casual analysts love using sometimes. It's not a bad thing to use, but I think people lean on that too much. But how do you measure? I wonder if you could if you could argue that certain players have superstar IQs, and players who have
mm,
superstar IQs can be impactful in so many ways, and in a way where it might not count in the counting stats. It might not involve them making the shot or collecting the assist, but like in Tyrese Halliburton's case, his superstar ability is his IQ to keep pace, to make the correct reads. That was one of the things that we used to love about Lonzo. That Lonzo will always make the correct read. Like he does have superstar ability in the fact that he has great touch on the ball, can throw entry passes, slip passes,
mm,
outlet passes with awesome precision. This OKC series was a perfect example. Game 7, I would say outside of Russ, but Russ had turnovers too. Like Denver couldn't throw an entry pass correctly to Jokic, and they couldn't set him up in a way to give him advantage situations. Like that's a skill. That's a real NBA skill that point guards are taught that come into the NBA, and some guys just can't do it. And so I think sometimes when you think about guys like Tyrese, like you have to think about him in that manner. Like he's just a really smart player. He'll make the smart play. He'll make the right read. Sometimes his shot might not fall, but he also has that IQ to withdraw himself. Like I've seen
yeah,
him have bad shooting games and be like, "All right, I missed like 4 of my last 7 shots. I'm not shooting it. I'm going to go find Aaron Neesmith, or I'm going to go find Andrew Nemhard or Miles Turner." So it's an interesting way, I think, to look at the game.
100%. And what's cool, I think about these teams that are left, they all kind of do it differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
They all have their own ways, and Jalen Brunson's really the only one on these 4 teams that's just pretty much dominates the basketball. Everyone else
Yeah.
kind of gets it in, through the flow. Shea does it as well, but Shea also just kind of gets it through his own, not really like having the ball at the top of the key, running a million actions. Anthony Edwards either, right? All those guys kind of do it in
Yep.
a very unique manner. And yeah, it's just this will kind of lead to our conversation, but all these guys also score in such different ways. There's a variety of ways
Yeah.
that they score, right? Jalen Brunson, I remember against Boston, like a lot of that was he couldn't bring the ball up. Like they were just pressuring the hell out of him. So he had to get it off spot ups. He had to attack closeouts. He had to get
Mm-hmm.
in multiple different ways, fadeaways, stuff like that. But yeah, it's just there's a level of versatility, man, that I watch now from the playoffs. And it's like, man, that's where we were so far. I thought even the leads that we got, the leads that we blew, we just didn't have the versatility to kind of keep up. But
Yeah.
let's get into the meat of this bone here
Yeah.
of our conversation.
Yeah. So for today's topic, today's off-season priorities topic, the thing I wanted to talk to Raj about, and have a conversation about is something that I think a lot of folks have been talking about on the timeline over the past week or two. And one of the things was this conversation about Luka and Austin being like the backcourt of the Lakers' future. If you've been watching anything, I'm not speaking to you, Raj, but like just for the folks that are watching, if you've been paying attention to anything on Lakers Twitter, almost on a daily basis, there is an Austin Reaves trade idea that's being thrown out there. This is the norm. I think Laker fans do this all the time. Not saying that Austin can't be traded, but I think Dan Wojcicki did write an article where he said, similar to like kind of what we've said on this, where it's just like, hey, like Austin, we understand that Austin is not untouchable, but we're just also not trading him for the sake of just trading him and trying to do a trade. Like it has to like really make sense. And I know we've debated or we've discussed many times like the true value of what Austin is. And so that can vary. It's subjective depending on which team you're doing a deal with. But like the way that I've been trying to explain it to other folks is like Austin's value, from a pick perspective, you're talking about a guy who's either worth 1 to 2 first round picks, or on the lower, that's on the higher end. Like 2 first round picks would be the higher end for a team that's like awful at drafting. Like from that perspective, 1 first round pick probably makes the most sense. But in reality, it's probably 1 first round pick plus like 2 second round picks. So somewhere in between 1 first round pick and 2. So if you think of Austin from that perspective, in terms of his production, that's a pretty valuable player. If he can bring you back a first round pick in 2 seconds, that's one thing. But the other thing is also, you don't get true value back for Austin. So I'm saying all this stuff because I want to contextualize it for people to understand why trading Austin is so difficult. He only makes $12 million. He should be probably making, based on his production, if you look around the league, closer to 20, 25, $30 million. And you guys are, I'm sure people are watching this going, $30 million, that's crazy. No, go look around the league at what some guys are being paid. Austin could very well command $30 million. And I think there's a little bit of sticker shock that people feel like, oh, $30 million is so much money. That sounds like LeBron money. $30 million for like a third guy is kind of like, that's kind of the norm. Like it's where it's going to be. And so anything that you discuss when it comes to trades has to take that into account. What his actual pick value probably is in return in terms of equating him to picks. And the fact that you're trading a $30 million player away, a potential $30 million player away, but because his salary doesn't equal that, you won't get a $30 million player back. You'll have to add more stuff into it to make that work. So that's what makes that so tricky in itself. And that's why I'm always pushing back on Austin trades that don't actually involve a superstar, because it's like, or a star, because it's like, it just doesn't make sense to do that. Is that a fair thing to say, fair perspective to have on that?
100%. I think it is. And look, I understand, and I'm with you. I think I understand the sticker shock of $30 million, but I was going through the salaries like the other day, and I mean, you just look at that range, Vinay, it's just kind of the going price, right? I mean, look at Desmond Bane's at 34. I think Tyler Hero's around that range. CJ McCollum's at 33. Emmanuel Quickly's at 33. You know what I mean? Those are just kind of the names of the guards at that level. That's always been my, like, I don't think Austin's untradeable, obviously, right? I think there's no untradeable player in the league. Maybe I'm sure you can call Oklahoma City and ask for Shea, and their GM will at least say, "What are you giving me?" That, you know, that the phone will still continue. That's the whole GM's job. But I just don't think there's a deal that you get back anything close to the return of what trading Austin would be at this point. And again, and you say this all the time. This is also a people business. This is also, you know, there's a lot of humans around all this. I'm saying this is the only reason, but Austin feels like an organizational win to me.
Huge win. Yeah.
Luka's a Rob win for me. Like, you know, I feel like Rob gets to put on the victory shoes of that one and run around as long as he wants.
Yeah. He's signing autographs, so we know that's happening.
That's what I'm saying. But Austin feels like an organizational, like, this is something we found. We, you know, not discrediting Austin's work within that, but yeah, I don't see a deal that, you know, makes a lot of sense. And I just don't see the Lakers moving him for a nominal center. You know what I mean? That who knows, JJ plays or not. But that's where my head's been. Renee, the people are sending me trades, and please don't send me 5-team trades. I'm not zooming in that far.
That's also not happening. Like whenever the Lakers made 5-team trades, like it's not something that 3 is like the maximum limit for the Lakers.
Yeah, I appreciate the time spent into it, but I'm just not the one to send those to. But yeah, that's where I'm at. But I guess you're there as well. I'm not seeing a trade that makes any sense. Now, again, Luka trade came out of nowhere. You know, there's special situations that can occur, but you canvas the league, and I just don't see one that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. For me, honestly, like the only way that Austin gets traded is, I think, from just thinking about it organizationally for the Lakers, the only way Austin gets traded is just kind of knowing what they think about him internally. If like a Giannis level superstar becomes available, like, and I think that's when they start thinking about it. But also they would consider Austin very valuable in that trade. So it's like,
Yep.
if the same way I described how his value is pick wise, like as a 1 or 2 first rounders, like the Lakers would probably argue that, like they'd be like, yeah, we're not going to give you extra picks when we're giving you this guy at a discounted cost already that you guys can negotiate later on what his extension is going to be. So it's like that's the way I think of it. It doesn't, maybe not a Giannis level superstar, but it has to be somebody who's like, you're going to pair him with Luka for like the next 7 years. You know what I mean? Like, or for however long his extension ends up being with us. So that's the way I kind of think of it. That's what, and Giannis is obviously the one who's been making the most buzz, doing question and answer sessions on Twitter to troll fans. So that's the reason why I mentioned that name. But let's move further, Raj.
Yeah.
I think we're in agreement as to the whole idea of being willing to trade Austin, but it has to really make sense. It can't just be a trade for the sake of the trade. Maybe the other players you can make a better argument to try and trade them for certain guys. But I want to have this conversation about the backcourt because there is a lot of conversation about there's a lot of analysis and conversation about Luka and Austin. And I think the reason why I want to cover this topic is because I think it requires us to take a step back. And I haven't seen anybody do it. And to be fair, I haven't listened to everybody's podcast, Laker podcast, so I wouldn't know if they've discussed it. But I think Laker fans have to take a step back with this conversation. And I think the first step back, the zoom out that's required is whether Luka and Austin are actually our backcourt. And I think there's a little bit of confusion within the Laker fan base when we talk about this, because traditionally when we think about basketball in terms of backcourts, we always do it. We have the number system, right? 1 is the point guard, 2 is the shooting guard, 3, 4, 5, that sort of thing. So when we talk about a backcourt, we're always talking about 1s and 2s, the point guard and the shooting guard. Now, Luka may functionally, my issue with this conversation that we have, and I'll pitch it to you, is we think of Luka and Austin as a 1 and 2, but in reality, they're not a 1 and 2. They're more like a 2 and a 3. And one of the things that's been going around, one of the discussions, like one of the analyses has been, both those guys are not great athletes. Both those guys are not great defenders. Some of that ties together. I would say Austin plays with more effort defensively, and Luka plays with less effort defensively. Some of that has to do with the attrition of how much offense he plays, all that sort of stuff. We'd have to get into those details. But anyways, that you can't really build a capable defense with those two guys as your backcourt. So the first thing I want to do, Raj, is ask you, is it okay to say that maybe these guys aren't actually our backcourt? It's more like you have a guy who plays point guard, point forward, and a combo shooting guard. Is it fair to characterize them in that regards?
Yeah, your position really is who you guard, right? I think that's more where your position comes from. It's who do you defend, and there's just no world where you put Luka on, the top point guards in the league. That's just you're putting them on forwards. We put Luka on Julius Randle. Again, Randle gave him some issues, but that's more of the matchup I think you'd like. And Austin's your 1, technically. He's guarding your 1s in that situation. So I'm with you. I don't think I understand when people say they're the backcourt. That's kind of, even I'll use that terminology, backcourt of the future, right? Is kind of the way you kind of frame that. This is our backcourt of the future to 26-year-old, or maybe Austin turned 27. I'm not 100% sure, but 2 guys kind of right in the thick of their primes, which is, I think, is one of the reasons I would not want to move Austin either. It just feels like you're cutting the cord on something that got 2 months of film. And it's just crazy how the honeymoon, and I mean, it was a pretty long honeymoon, but it was a long honeymoon that got cut short off a 5-game kind of sample there. But I'm with you. I think there's I think LeBron, Austin, and Luka really there's some sensitivity needed in building around that. But just going back, as you said, I'm totally with you. I think this is a 1 and a 4 on defense. With Luka as your 1 or shot curator on offense. Almost don't even put him in a point guard kind of bucket. He's just your overall playmaking shot creator. Doesn't really matter what position he's in. And I'd argue the issue for our team is we had no shooting guard. We had 5 forwards or 4 forwards and one guard in Austin, which I think
Right.
really broke the balance of the roster, and just athletically we weren't, up to par. But
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah, and so I wanted to highlight this. And for the folks that are leaving in the chat, if you guys are asking questions in the chat, we are definitely starring them, and we're gonna insert them into the conversation as we go through it. So don't think that we forgot your questions. But I just want to highlight kind of this message here from Dark Galaxy. So he's mentioning here that Rui was guarding out of position, and so if we think back to the Minnesota series, we had Rui, one of our better defenders on Ant-Man was Rui, because he was able to kind of keep up with him physically. He was strong. Rui's not a nimble athlete like the way Ant is, but he's good enough to just kind of cause issues and make it difficult for Ant to just kind of bully his way to the rim like he would against Luka, or just blow by guys like Luka and Austin. So the reason why I wanted to preface it with that, Raj, is because I think one of the reasons why Austin keeps getting thrown in these trade conversations is because we keep thinking of them together. We think of them like Shea and Caruso, like Shea and Jalen Williams, like the roles that they play defensively. Or we think about them like Tyrese Halliburton and Andrew Nembhard. And Nembhard is a great defender. Halliburton's no slouch. Or we think of them like Michael Bridges and Jalen Brunson. You know what I mean? Like we think they're like the 1 and the 2, and they're really not.
Right.
And I think if you start actually splitting up what they are defensively, then you realize that there's probably some opportunities for the Lakers to improve themselves on the defensive end in that starting lineup that allows them to be more competitive against a team like Minnesota or OKC and that sort of thing. So if we separate that out and we treat Luka, forget whether he's a 3 or a 4, he's basically a tweener, a 3 or 4. But if we treat him like the point forward, right, the role that LeBron's traditionally had, the point forward, and we treat Austin like the off-ball guard, the off-ball combo guard that's going to play next to him. And let's say Bron is like this off-ball wing, tweener wing that plays next to Luka, right? My question to you is, shouldn't the other 2 roles? Now, you've posted clips of Christian Coloco playing defense in a regular season against Minnesota Timberwolves. I think it's very clear that you want JJ to play center. Just try a center against Minnesota, which you refused to do. Friend of the show, Real Sign Guy, he kind of mentioned that earlier here when he said he could understand why out of 5 available setters, JJ and Maxi Kleber didn't make sense. I don't know the explanation for that either. But wouldn't it make sense, hypothetically, that if we added 2+ defenders, okay, maybe not all defensive guys unless there's one available, at those 2 positions, maybe one who's not, instead of a Rui size wing, maybe like Andrew, and I floated this before in the last pod, but an Andrew Wiggins size defender into that starting group. And then you get maybe really great center, Nicholas Claxton type of guy. That's been the hot name that everybody's discussing. If you add Nick Claxton and Andrew Wiggins to that starting lineup, doesn't that raise the defensive floor of that team to a level where you can compete against some of these teams? Or is that too far-fetched? Or
no, I think what you're simply doing is you're increasing the foot speed there, right? I mean, our starting lineup our starters that really played any significant minutes, the death lineup that we coined, that was a very slow unit, right? Dorian and Rui, as helpful as they are extremely slow in terms of foot speed. And you pair that with LeBron, Austin, and Luka. Austin, I think, is the quickest out of those guys, but defensively, at least, it doesn't help as much. And that's where I think just athletically raising your floor, which is, I think we came on here and we're like, Jackson Hayes kind of has to play. It's just in terms of the roster that we had and the roster that was available, I just thought that Jackson, had to play. People are asking me if I'm okay after I was posting the Coloco clips with no context towards them. I was just, playing them out of
I like to think that Raj is just like he's like watching some other game happen. He's just like reminiscing. He's just like, why didn't we let me just post some clips of Coloco?
I was writing about Coloco for Silver Screen Row, and I was going through my clips, and I thought I'm just gonna release these to the public without any context towards it, and went ahead and just posted those. But I think just our scheme mixed with that, Vinay, because I think people are saying, if you just put a Aaron Nesmith on this team, but if you're still switching everything, then they're gonna be able to pick on Luka,
Hmm.
on Austin in ways. And I just
Hmm.
thought there was a lack of variance there. But yeah, I thought a big man would have helped. It wouldn't have solved everything. I think we have to give Minnesota some credit there as well. But yeah, I just there's a level of roster building and intention I'd like us to have that I thought we didn't have a chance at. But I'm with you. I think if you're able to athletically raise Wiggins and Claxton are names that you floated, and I think are in the kind of realm. I'm seeing the chat bringing up Derek Jones Jr. That's another guy that I think makes a lot of sense. Can slide up or down defensively, have a level of versatility that we
Hmm.
just didn't have.
Yeah, yeah, and so that's one of the things. So the reason why this is named the title of this pod is Austin, about Austin and Luca, is because offensively, I do think they can work together. I think the Lakers can be an effective offensive team with both of those guys together. Now, it still remains to be seen what happens if Austin is routinely getting checked by all defensive guys, right? A lot of people were upset with Austin, or thought Austin didn't play as well as he could have, which is fair. And then he had the toe injury. That news came out later. But he might have some issues dealing with really athletic guys, especially if he's not getting foul calls and that sort of thing. And then that can wear down on a player. It certainly can wear down on a guy like Luka too as well. But the athletic baseline of that starting group
Yes.
can certainly be better. And as much as we love Rui, you and I have been saying, hey, Rui's been great. Like, well, we get mad at Rui for all kinds of stuff and get really upset at his lowlights, but that guy's been there. Like, he had a great series too. He was knocking down a lot of shots. The third quarter of Game 4 was when they started blitzing Luka. I want to say it might have been Game 3 or Game 4 in Minnesota, and Rui just went bananas. He was like making every
Yeah.
short roll read correctly, and I was like, I've never seen this version of Rui before since he's been here. And I was scared. I think I remember telling you, I was like, dude, I was scared because I was like, oh my god, he's going to make the right decision here. Is he going to shoot it, or is he going to? He was great. Anyways, but it might make more sense that in a perimeter-oriented league, the fact that Luka's athleticism and foot speed is not quite where it needs to be. Austin effort is there, but the athleticism might not be there. It might make more sense to have a guy who plays the Rui role, but is more perimeter oriented, more nimble, more agile. The Derek Jones Jr., the Andrew Wiggins, the Bruce Browns, those type of guys who can switch, who will fight over screens the way Alex Caruso might do, who will ball pressure, happily ball pressure for 94 feet if that's what they get asked to do, like Keyshawn Wallace does. Like, those kind of guys, I think are super would go a long way for a lineup like this. But they can't be small guys, Raj. We can't get another
Yeah.
Pat Beverly because I don't think that actually helps the Lakers. It has to be
Mm-mm.
somebody with size. Do you agree with that? You think that's probably a fair way
Yeah,
to?
yeah. You need someone who's a better athlete, right?
Yeah.
And or at least I think you need like a wing or guard. I don't think we had like a shooting guard.
Hmm.
And it felt like we missed. Obviously, you do the trade 100 times, but Max Christie was a guy that would have helped as like just a big guard with size that has some athletic tools to him. Just guys like that. I think Wiggins is a good name as well, even though I wonder what the package would be to kind of bring him in. But I'm with you. It has to have someone with size and that can kind of guard up and down. And look, I'm like, again, Oklahoma City was cold this series in terms of the three ball, but they have a lot of guys that just guard
Hmm.
extremely well, right? I think Aaron Wiggins shot well in game 6 or game 7, but throughout the series, really just a defensive guy that they put in. Jalen Williams, not J-Dub, but Jalen Williams comes in as he's not a guard, but just very much a defensive role on that team. I think Jordan Goodwin was our only like defensive ace that we threw in kind
I
of.
think that's the role that JJ was trying to play him in. I think JJ was hoping that he could get some Bruce Brown out of Jordan Goodwin, and he did. I would say like game 2 or
Yeah.
something like that. Jordan Goodwin had like a nice stretch of basketball where he was like challenging Jane McDaniels or something like that on a rebound. I can't remember who it was, but it seemed like that's what he was trying to extract out of Jordan Goodwin. That's why he was getting some minutes.
Yeah. I thought I think game 3 as well. I thought on the road he had, enough. He played well enough to kind of earn more minutes. And then game 4 obviously was the bench everybody and no one's playing in the second half. But
Yeah.
I thought Jordan was helpful. And I think that, and look, Jordan's a two-way guy that, got the standard contract. So it's tough to kind of fully rely on that type of player. But Vinay, for that to be your only really defensive guy you're
He's the
playing,
G
right? I
League
think
guy too. At that, yeah.
G League guy, yeah. And again, credit to him for earning that spot. But and, you know, Dorian I think is helpful defensively, but not in the role that we're looking for, right? The like how many teams Vinay can ball pressure, you know,
Yeah.
up and down, and that's just something we
Did
don't.
did we ever ball pressure, Raj? Do you remember a time where we ball pressured consistently throughout the game? That was like the entire theme of OKC's matchup against
Right.
Denver. They're like, we're ball pressuring everybody.
Bro, Indiana, like Garland and Mitchell, you're not dribbling one time without us in your
Yeah.
face. You know, I mean, like all these teams, and with the playoffs getting more physical or maybe back to the physicality, who knows where the
Mm-hmm.
line was, but I think there's some of that too. There's a lack of perimeter physicality that we were kind of missing.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I think that's something that should be a focus this year. But yeah, just not having ball pressure being a part of it, not having an athlete on the perimeter that can really make things difficult. And you combine that with having no big man inside either, no physical presence. It's really rough combination. But yeah, I'm with you. Someone with some size, some athletes, got to go through the names and stuff like that. But you know, Derek Jones would be nice, but I think he's still signed with the Clippers next year, if I have that
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah. We'll see what the fallout is with a couple of these teams and where everybody goes and how things work out. My next thought is this. So I think we agreed that like it's not that Rui is bad, but we might need a different type of defensive guy to a different guy in that lineup. DFS is not necessarily that guy either. He can defend wings, but he's not necessarily like a wing defender, a nimble wing defender in that capacity. And so whatever the Lakers decide to do, it'll be interesting to see. I think that would naturally slide guys into more natural roles. So if Braun stays at the 3 and Luka slides to the 4, and he's playing those corner guys or playing the low man responsibilities or playing like the other wing guy that's not really the shooting one, that should be okay. But my next question is this, Raj. We saw JJ pull the Maxi Kleber card at the end of the season. There was a lot of eyebrow raising in my household because I was just like, "What?" And I distinctly remember tweeting like, "Oh, they're trying to lose this game," because I actually thought that's what they're trying to do. They were like, "Oh, we're just gonna play Maxi Kleber because we know we're gonna give up 100 points and probably only score like 90, and we're okay losing that way." And obviously, you don't want to hear something like that, but that's what it felt like when they play that card. But my question to you was, how important does floor spacing from that 5 position need to be? Because I feel like it's a little overrated considering what I'm watching in the playoffs right now.
I think we had this conversation before, but it feels like that's what the Lakers have been trying to find, right?
Mm-hmm.
That every time they pick into the center lot, they kind of prioritize the center with a jump shot. Even their draftees, Colin Castleton, right, was the guy they drafted because there was some scoring punch to it. Thomas Bryant, another spacing center. Mo Bamba is another one that we really tried. Marc Gasol, which I think was better than it's remembered as. But
don't forget your favorite guy, Mike Muscala.
Oh my God, yeah, the guy, the legend, Mike Muscala. To me, it matters very little. Can you jump? Can you protect the rim? Can you catch lobs? It's kind of more and can you stay on the court, right? Can you not get in foul trouble? The 3 is the bonus, right? Like Miles Turner hit some threes for Indiana, but that's not really what's making them go at all. It's his ability to protect the rim, really, and be a rim running threat, a guy who is a vertical spacing threat for them. To me, that's way more important, at the center position. I like the sad part to me, even is like this whole summer is going to be about, small ball's dead and small ball doesn't work. And fundamentally to me, that's not true. It did work. It's just, it can't be the only thing that you go to. I would still next year like to see some Dorian at center if he's back. I think he has a player option that he can approve or deny on. But I'd still like to see Dorian at the center minutes. I think there's real utility to it. It's just at the 5 this year, and I think Rob will. At the press conference, he said there's a lot of archetypes at center. There are, but you know which one that your star player likes. Mark Williams was legit sold as a Luka request, really. And so, I think that's what they'll go after. But there's got to be an athletic kind of baseline to him that he needs to be more athletic than my guards, right? Like I can't have Jonas Valanciunas at center when my guards are Luka Doncic and Austin Reaves. Like there's got to be more athletic profile there. Steven Adams, another one I would like, but I don't think he'll be available. So
so if if we circle it back to the original topic, right, which is
Mhm.
the theme of the pod, which is this Austin Luka backcourt. Like the number one thing that I think people have said is like it's not good defensively enough for various reasons: effort,
Yes.
athleticism, whatever it might, motor, whatever it might be. If you're going to commit to that, right? And you and I have been we've been very big proponents of the Lakers have to have some basketball conviction. Decide, pick a direction you want to go in, and stick to that direction. And if we lose going in that direction, then I'll be like, hey, we just couldn't do it. We tried to do it this way and it didn't work. And I'm okay as a fan doing that sort of thing because you can't accommodate for everything. It's impossible for any team to account for every style of basketball that you're going to run into. Sometimes you just have to hope your style wins. So I think one of the things that I hope that the Lakers do is if they're going to commit to this idea that Luka and Austin are going to be our offensive linchpins of the future, right? The staples of our offense because we like them both. Then you have to acknowledge that there are going to be times where no matter how much effort they put into the situation, they're going to get beat. They're going to get beat to the rim, and teams are going to try and pick on that. They didn't do it up with Austin as much. I thought they definitely did it with Luka. Obviously, in the fourth quarter, they were going after him quite a bit. I think there's been data about him getting picked on, hunted, quite out there. But like, if you know that and you kind of know that, and you see Minnesota kind of going to that strategy, and you've seen other teams go to that strategy in the regular season, then you have to prioritize that. You have to flank those guys with athletic defenders that can't just be completely ignored off the floor. And you have to have a really, really great rim defender in that capacity. And so, like, when people think about this backcourt and all the flaws and that sort of stuff, one of the things I've thought to myself is it's not like you can't accommodate for that. Like, we're not like the only team in the league that has great offensive players that can't defend. You know what I mean? Like, you gave an example of the Cavs, right? The Cavs have Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. Mitchell's a good defender; he's a great athlete, but Garland's a smaller guy. Like he's not a big dude. And no matter how much effort they put in, they might have difficulty staying in front of certain bigger players or stronger players, that sort of thing. So Lakers aren't new to this. If you had to pick, like, let's just say like there's a priority of what you have to do. Is that 5-man more important to prioritize than the wing defender for you?
Yeah, I think they both go together. I think the 5 is probably more important. I think there's ways in the regular season, I think you can get away with a little bit more of that. But I think a 5 is just more important to kind of build the chemistry with, and I think to kind of lessen the miles that it would take on a LeBron at center or something like that. So but Vinay, I think both are equally important if you want to where you want to go. I'm watching these playoffs and I just don't think you can be this athletically deficient and win. I mean, we just watched a 64-win Cavs team. Now they had some injuries, obviously, but even at whole, the athletic profile just consumes you eventually. I thought we saw that against Denver OKC as well as Denver played. I thought there was an athletic gap between their wings versus Denver's, and they really consumed a lot of the basketball, and the turnovers started to pick up. Indiana as well on the other side. Even like the Knicks, interestingly, like you brought up, other teams deal with this. Jalen Brunson's he's a tough guard. He's a small guard.
Yeah.
He's listed at 6'2", but I'm not sure he's 6'2". But and so another guy that they protect well. Towns isn't an amazing defender. He's had his moments as a defensive player, but they're just physical as hell all around, and they make you earn anytime you want to hunt one of their guys, right? And you're going to take 16, 17 seconds off the clock on one of those guys. And so there's ways to kind of get around it, but again, they also understand, like, does Tibbs want to play Mitchell Robinson this much? Probably doesn't. Doesn't want to play a 20% free or 30% free throw shooter, but he understands I have an athletic baseline that I'm going to have to reach to beat the Celtics, even with Tatum. Tatum went out when they were down after they were down 3-1, but I think there's an athletic floor that we need to reach. Which why, to me, I think the center is the most like eye-popping thing that's missing. But I think a guy on the wing is just as important.
Yeah, and for me, just with like the shot selection, like if JJ on offense, my thing is if JJ on offense is not prioritizing, but if he's like encouraging these guys to shoot more threes, like Luke already shoots a bunch of threes. Austin's had an uptick on the amount of threes that he takes. Obviously, he's getting open threes too. Braun is taking more threes. Like if you're taking a lot of threes anyways, then offensively, you're not going to want your 5 guy to be standing out on the perimeter. Like you're going to want those guys taking those threes anyways. So unless you're like having a 5 that can space the floor would only matter if that 5 was shooting like 10 threes, like Brook Lopez. Like he's shooting like 12 threes a game. I don't know what he actually shoots, but like 9 to 10 threes a game. Like if you're shooting like 3 threes a game, like you don't need a floor spacing 5. Like it really doesn't matter. The value of him rebounding really well and defending in space really well and rim protecting well is way, way more important than his ability to space the floor at that point. And so I've been very interested to see just kind of what, like just kind of seeing how people have been doing that, because I've, for the past 3 years, everybody's been like, oh, we need Miles Turner. We need Miles Turner. We need Miles Turner. And then obviously they're doing well. Pacers are doing well. But now people are like, nah, we don't really need Miles Turner. We need a guy who can finish lobs and who can do this. So like, it's just interesting that we've switched from that to that, obviously going from AD to Luka and that sort of thing. But, one guy that we haven't discussed, and I don't think it would be fair to discuss anything about the Lakers if we don't discuss him, LeBron. I think LeBron would also benefit from a real traditional center, rim protecting center, because there were certainly times in the series, and there have been times in games where he gets checked by a guy like Rudy Gobert, or he gets checked by a center. And more often than not, LeBron wins those matchups one-on-one. But again, the wear and tear can catch up to him. He gets, bumped in the knee or has an ankle issue, or just, him being old is a back-to-back, that sort of thing. You want to give him an escape outlet to be able to pass the ball to. And Braun is still a world-class passer and has world-class IQ. I think that's really important too as well. I think that's a super important way for us to go. If the Lakers, let's say they figure it out, they get Daniel Gafford, let's say they happen to get Andrew Wiggins. Miami's like, oh God, we don't want this guy's money, just take him. So they send him to us. We're not sending out any picks or anything like that before. And Dallas sends us Gafford in a 3-way trade because Dallas is trying to get a different player, but they don't want to send back a certain team, that sort of thing. Let's just say that the Lakers make it happen. What would you say is the next biggest priority for the Lakers? Let's say you're keeping DFS. You're probably let's say you add Andrew Wiggins, you add Nick Claxton, or you add Daniel Gafford. You still have DFS off the bench. Rui's gone. Yeah. Gabe's probably gone. Maxi's gone. What's the next biggest thing you think that we would need?
Yeah, I think then you're just filling out, trying to find athletic wings that can pop, next to Luka, Austin, and LeBron. This isn't for today's pod. In the future pod, I think we should do one of just what you should surround those 3 with in terms of what's, probably most beneficial for all 3 of them. But Vinay, I'm watching these playoffs going. There's a bunch of D and 3 players, what I mean? It's been called 3 and D, but I think a lot of these are D and 3. Our guy Caruso, which we didn't get into very much, but Caruso obviously is hitting his open threes, which boosts his value. Yeah, boosts his value to a whole nother stratosphere. But he's played because he's a defensive monster, and just in terms of and just athletically. In terms of how he helps their team. But guys like that, I think again, it should be that, Luka, Austin, LeBron should have your offense humming to a certain degree with some conventionality placed upon it. I think you surround those guys with athletes, with physical players. Doesn't have to be Trey Jameson, but like some dudes who at least are very physical, come in, muck things up, can stay on the floor. Like Lou Dort's an interesting guy that's been not in terms of traded to the Lakers, but his archetype, Vinay, just a super physical dude that chases over and defends in an 82 game kind of grind. A guy has an everyday motor. I just think this team kind of missing that. That's why I think Jordan Goodwin popped. There's a motor to him that's every play, and that's why he got kind of he passed Dalton in the rotation right now. I mean, he kind of upended Dalton's position in the rotation because of just the motor he has defensively. Those are the guys I kind of look at. Where are you at if the Lakers are able to go get their wing and center? Where's the next move for them?
So I wanted to ask, do you think that the Lakers need to get a 6-man? And so the reason why I'm asking that is because I was watching the Clippers series against the Nuggets, And the Clippers traded for Bojan Bogdanovic, which was a guy that I think even Laker fans had kept their eyes on, and for just somebody who could get for inexpensively in a trade. And they had Harden, Norm Powell, and Kawhi, and they still brought Bojan off the bench as sort of a scoring guy to keep the scoring line. I don't know how JJ is going to deploy our three guys. And I think we've hoped that there's always two of them on the floor at all times. But as we've seen in the regular season, that's not how JJ deployed them. Like Austin would get some lineups where Luka and Braun weren't on the floor. Like it would just be Austin on the floor. And there were some times where we kind of struggled with scoring too, to some degree, when it was just one of those guys on the floor. There are many times where JJ might have to put JJ wants to play just one guy. It's like Braun, three defenders, and like one shooter, like Dalton, Braun, Gabe, Dalton, like those weird wonky lineups that he would run. So I've been wondering, do we need another guy that can score the basketball? It doesn't have to be like a $20 million a year guy.
Sure.
Do we need to think about maybe adding a 6-man type of guy? Or do you think maybe Dalton should step into that role? I mean, he's not 6-man in a traditional sense because he's not on ball like that, but
yeah, I don't know. I don't know where you would go get another ball handler at whatever the cost would be without extorting other resources where that you'd probably need to fill the other spots. You would hope that obviously they wouldn't be your 6-man, but kind of whoever's manning the second unit is your 6-man, whether it's Austin and Luka or LeBron, whoever's manning it. So no, I don't know. I feel like those type of players lose value in the playoffs. Like, like a Norm Powell, those type of guys. I think Norm played okay in the Denver series, but just, these offensive first guards that are coming off the bench that aren't really giving you much else, but also aren't good enough to kind of ask for the amount of touches that it would take to kind of create their value. But I don't see that as the need for this team, but I might be wrong. They couldn't score in the fourth quarter. I don't think there's another ball handler, Vinay, you plop in there and that helps. I think you have enough ball handling. I think you need all the other stuff now. You got the base, just you got to fill everything else in.
So if we had to do like a priority, just thinking off top, so it'd be athletic rim defender, lob finishing rim defender, priority number 1. Priority number 2 is probably a perimeter 3-and-D wing size defender that defends 2s and 3s. And the third, if it's not a 6-man, it's probably a second center, like a second competent center, right? That can always be on the floor. So you always have consistently 2 centers. That's probably the priority. Those three positions, right?
Yeah, and like I don't know this. I know the people are saying the regular season doesn't matter, but I mean this team won 50+ games. I think they were 27 and 25 and 13 when after the Luka trade, and that was with part of the season that gets. Obviously it doesn't matter now, but they're on an 8-game winning streak for and then LeBron went down, right? LeBron goes down in Boston following the 7-game win streak. The Lakers go 3-4. LeBron returns, and then it's the hellish April and March schedule, which I think there was like 4 back-to-backs or something within concession, and then the Lakers went right into the playoffs. Again, I think a lot of this would get kind of fueled with the training camp, with a roster that makes more sense. JJ, I think, was signed right after free agency. I think last year. I think it was a little bit later in the year. So hopefully a little bit more synergy between those 2 parties or 3 parties or 4 parties, whoever's making these decisions. There's a little bit more synchronicity that goes on this summer, and we can have a little bit more of a deeper team. One
of the things I do feel a little bit more confident about is that JJ is a basketball sicko, the way he likes to describe himself, and so I think he does really look at skills on a very in-depth level and all the individual characteristics that are required to be a successful basketball player. So I think like when it comes to like him, if Rob is saying I have a list of guys that are available, I trust JJ to like be like, no, not that guy. This guy, yes, not that guy. And the fact that he's kind of bouncing around the league as a player and has connections and relationships with like all these different front offices and players and stuff like that, and he can leverage information as to like if this guy's a good player or what his attitude's like in the locker room. I have more confidence. So that secret meeting, not so secret meeting with Luka and Rob with the manila folders, that probably came from his office, from the Lakers office. Like, I'm glad to see that, because it's just like, okay, they're thinking about it. There's some like cross communication happening here, assuming that that's what it was about. So I'm happy about that. Raj, that's all I had for that topic. Is there anything top of mind that you had before we jump into the questions real quick?
Not really, honestly. I think that was, we went into everything there. Again, next, or one of the few pods of what we'll kind of do a more, I think, detailed kind of what players and stuff like that would be available and what fit. But
yeah,
exciting week of hoops left to go.
Yeah. I feel like we won't, outside of obviously Giannis and all the news that he's kind of putting out there, like we're probably not going to hear about what players are truly available until like as it gets closer to the finals being concluded, which is why folks, we are pushing back a little bit on just discussing prospective free agents, because I've seen some names get thrown out there by some Laker aggregation accounts, and I'll be like, that guy's not even available. Like he's not going to get traded. Like I saw Herb Jones get like we should trade for Herb Jones. I was like, do you guys talk to New Orleans fans? Like they love Herb Jones, and their organization also loves Herb Jones. Like, oh, we should get trade. Not that they're not, that we shouldn't. And obviously, we got Luka, so anybody's possible. So I understand the exceptionalism, but it's like, oh, we should get Trey Murphy. Like New Orleans loves Trey Murphy. They like him a lot. Like they liked him so much. They're like, we're okay with trading Brandon Ingram away. Like that's how much they like him. So it's that certain guys won't be available, but we'll push that out a little bit longer. So let me hit some of these questions. We can rapid fire through them. George, member of the Detailers Club. We love the folks that are support the YouTube and the Detailers Club. He has a question. Speaking of backcourt, how much juice is left on the LeBron AR inverted pick and roll? Raj, I know you love inverted pick and roll.
Yes.
Can it translate to a Luka Austin Reaves inverted pick and roll?
I don't just love inverted pick and rolls. LeBron loves inverted pick and rolls. This is out right from his playbook. I think there's still a lot of juice left, and honestly, we saw a lot of it. Our win against Memphis down the stretch, which Luka played in, was LeBron Austin, inverted screen actions. I would hope that Austin and Luka can grow some of this, and I'm still holding on to the fact that playing no center kind of forced a lot of the stagnation one-on-one basketball that we got, where it really neutralized a lot of the screen stuff. So I still think there's juice to it. I've really killed the idea that Luka will be setting any of these ball screens, but he can at least receive them. So hopefully, that's
Luka is, I'm not going to say yet, but Luka, I'm keeping like a little bit of a watch on does he do the little things? Like he'll rebound in traffic and stuff like that. He does that stuff for sure. So I'm not going to say that. No to that defensive. But there's still like some little stuff that I'll be like, he doesn't really do that, does he? And so, well, anyways, we don't have to discuss that. I don't feel like upsetting another core fan base for the years to come with those discussions until it comes up on tape. Ramel has a question. How much stock do you put in what the team did defensively earlier in the year? And how much do you consider about it when building the roster for next season? I'll take a stab at this. I do put quite a lot of stock, at least schematically, and tactically what they try to do. I think what OKC is doing what OKC did against Denver defensively in their series is very similar to what the Lakers did in the regular season against Denver in that series. They scrambled. They specifically were waiting for all the entry passes to get thrown to Jokic so they could sort of time the entries, fight him for position, fight him for the passing angles, that sort of stuff. So I put a lot of stock in the sense that I thought our idea behind what we wanted to do defensively was really great. I think in the playoffs, our execution, because we didn't have centers, we didn't have playable centers in JJ's eyes, it kind of worked against us. And obviously, a Luka team needs to be constructed very differently than a Bron and AD team.
Yeah, we had that stretch, I think, when AD went out and then Jackson Hayes filled in, and we were just a really feisty defensive team. And a lot of that was Max Christie was also healthy, and obviously the team switched. But there's some defensive talent personnel there with our staff, and that's what I'm kind of holding on to before it all kind of cratered, and we went really into this extreme style of basketball. But I put some stock into it. Obviously, AD being a hub of your defensive kind of scheme is just much different whoever you put in that spot, especially ones when you're filling in with minimum centers that are playing not the same role, but in that role. So I put some stock into it, but the Lakers are kind of have to start from a new whiteboard this summer, really on that.
Yep. Thanks for the question, Ramel. We have a question from Ashan. This is about non-Lakers. This is about the OKC Jokic series. So I want to highlight this because it's about Caruso. So did Dagnall figure out the Nuggets couldn't do a post entry, and that's why they put Caruso on Jokic. So I think there's two things that happen to Sean. One thing is that the OKC figured out that we can press the Nuggets players into bad passes because we can challenge their passing angles and we can battle Jokic because Jokic isn't like Shaq. For the folks that don't know how Shaq was a guy who would run hard down the floor and would get super deep post position and make it nearly impossible for you to move him from his position because he was such a physical dude. Jokic, even though he is big, will try to catch the ball at the free throw line or at the mid post. That makes it easier for some of those guys to kind of cover in space. I think the key thing that flipped the series for OKC that they figured out is they are faster to everything than Denver is. They are faster to passes. They are faster to rebounds. They are faster to closing out on, getting around screens. And they played that way. They played lineups of Keyshawn Wallace, Alex Caruso, Lou Dort, Jalen Williams, and then they play like Isaiah Hartenstein, like only one center for rebounding. But the other four guys would close on the ball so fast that they were almost suffocated to some degree. And so I think that's what they figured out, that they can be faster and more and higher execution.
It reminded me a lot of the, scheme that we did when we played Denver in February. Kind of just, we're going to swarm Jokic, right? We're going to put a small on them. Once he catches the ball, we'll swarm him. And we believe we can get out to Denver shooters and we can create turnovers in that way. And I thought, and Caruso was fantastic. There's this idea of he was fouling on every play. And like, that's fine if that's how you believe. I think it was brilliant defense that they're allowing in the playoffs, and you kind of leverage, the advantages you get.
And I mean, if the refs aren't calling it, then have at it. Like, even I was watching Game 7, I was just like, wow, they're really letting Alex Caruso beat the crap out of Jokic. But I'm like, if I'm Alex Caruso and they're not calling it, then I'm just going to keep doing it. I can't really blame Alex for that. So Ebook asked a question. Ebook 88 asked a question. Is Rui the issue, or actually is the forwards wings the issue? So I'll let you take this one, Raj. You go first.
Yeah, I definitely think it's more of a let's just have different, items to go to rather than Rui is the issue. And Rui had a great playoffs to me. I think he was awesome. He did his job. He hit his open shots. I thought he competed against Ant as best as he could. I thought he competed against Randall as best as he could, even though Randall kind of was able to, find his way. It's not a Rui issue per se. It's just Rui is kind of fitting the bill of these guys who aren't athletic, and he's kind of in the same boat that Dorian is, right? It's just, and in some degrees, what LeBron's obviously a crazy athlete, but in terms of like just out of jumping out your chair athleticism that you need in a regular season grind, I don't think LeBron's bringing you that. And so, I don't think it's a Rui issue at all. It's just, let's just get other guys, get other athletes in there.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's very tough. The foot speed between Braun, Rui, and Luka is not great, and I think that hurts you when you have to play against really athletic guys, and that makes things very difficult. That's probably like the easiest way that I would describe it. So I'm going to give you two Austin trades. We're going to close it out. The last two questions, I'm going to give you two Austin trades.
Yes.
I already know your answer is probably going to be nope. I'm just going to flip them out there because it wouldn't be right if we didn't do that. So Sulov asked a question: Would you include Austin in a trade for Gafford and PJ? So let's
I would not.
Some filler like Max.
Yeah,
Maxey gets traded back, even though that's probably not legal. But yeah, go ahead.
I wouldn't. That's just not enough to me for to trade Austin out. I think you can go find a center of Gafford's value for that. PJ's the wild card within that. But yeah, that's not enough to me in an Austin deal. How about you? Would you do that deal?
No, I wouldn't do that deal. I won't give much of an explanation.
Sure.
I value Austin a little bit more than that. I wouldn't do it in that. I don't think PJ is enough value in return, and I don't think Gafford is equal value to Austin. I think Austin's way better positionally than and on the market than Gafford. Sean. We got a question from our guy Rome.
Yes.
Reaves, Kleber, and two swaps for Derek White and Sam Hauser. Who says no?
I think Boston says no. To me, White, Brown, and Tatum is their core now. So I can see that, but I can see both teams locking the doors of their if there are rooms and having some consultations around that. But I would say Boston says no, wouldn't you? Or would you? Or both teams kind of come to the no
Yeah,
conclusion, maybe.
I
Okay.
would say I think maybe both teams come and say no. I think
Okay.
Boston. I did. White is a terrific defensive guard,
Yeah.
and you saw in the playoffs like he can win you a game offensively too as well. Especially, I mean, just looking at it from like an outlook perspective, I think especially with Tatum out for the season, White probably becomes really valuable for them in terms of what they want to do and if they want to move off of Drew because he's just an older guy. That's probably going to be the angle that they got. Drew's already won him a championship, so that's already you kind of won that trade in doing that. So it'll be interesting to see what direction Boston goes in. I don't think people are going to like what Boston does, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes from whatever. So people are going to be very upset, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But folks, we appreciate all the folks that are able to join. We apologize for the delay, and we're super ecstatic, super humbled that you guys were able to wait around for 30 minutes and still able to join us for the entire pod. As always, I'll make sure I upload this on Apple and Spotify. And for the folks who joined us late, you can run this back on YouTube, or you can just wait for it to show up in your Apple and Spotify feeds, and you can check it out there. We hope everybody's enjoyed. There isn't much Laker news going on right now. We're just enjoying all the basketball we're watching. WNBA season is back. The Sparks are playing, so I'm catching them too as well. It's been interesting. Raj, we didn't even talk about the latest beef between Caitlin Clark fans and Angel Reese fans, which has turned into full-blown race wars on Twitter.
It's insane.
Dude, I was just like, dude, this is not even about basketball. Like, all it takes is one interaction between them, and you guys are just like turning it into a race war on Twitter. And I'll be like, bro, what? Anyways, I thought the WNBA was going to be like this like beautiful place where like people would just respect basketball, and it's like,
nope,
it is nosedive already. Game like first weekend, but we tune in for the basketball, so it's been fun to watch. Paige looks really good. Caitlin continues to look good. So I'm excited to continue watching them. Folks, we appreciate you. We appreciate all the time that you take with us. We appreciate the support. If you're watching this on X or YouTube, head over to YouTube, subscribe, leave a comment, tell your friends about it. I love running into people saying, hey, aren't you that guy who talked about Lakers with that other Indian guy? That's also a very nice way of introducing yourself to me. But we appreciate all the support we get. And we hope wherever you're listening to this in the day or in the evening, you're having a wonderful day. And if nothing else, we'll catch you in the next one. Take it easy.
Peace.